Okay, thank you everyone for coming to my talk, and I would like to thank the organizers for organizing the conference. Today I will talk about price volatility, money, and the implications for digital currencies, which is what motivated my thinking about this issue. So, first, in order to settle the debate, we need to establish the definition of money. And this is the core issue in the debate, in my opinion. We will see how the definition of money actually depends on the dynamics of the purchasing power of money, and specifically the price volatility. So we will discuss that after that. Finally, we will conclude with what all this means for crypto and more. So, as Austrian economists, we're all familiar with Mises' definition of money, and it doesn't show it here, so I'll just read it from me here. A commodity universally employed as a medium of exchange. This is a quote. The main issue with this definition is that it's not actually compatible with the subjectivity or the marginal nature of value. It also clearly leads into issues of interpretation, and Mises also noted this ambiguity in the definition. When does something count as universally employed? Now, we will see how to correct this by going back to basics. There it is. So it's not subjective, not marginal. Okay. So operational definitions are what we actually use implicitly for any other commodity when analyzing prices. We define the commodity according to the use it is actually put towards. For example, a TV in the living room may be an entertainment device, but if we put it in a different place, it might just be a decoration, maybe if we put a still photo on it. This is just like the concept of revealed preferences. And of course, it is a subjective definition and therefore doesn't conflict with the law of diminishing marginal utility and avoids this ambiguity issue. So to define money with this kind of definition, we need to identify the uses of money, and whatever is actually used as money is money. And actually, Mises has already done this for us, and I summarize from his theory of money and credit. So the uses are a medium of exchange to facilitate credit transactions, and as a transmitter of value through space and time. And although we say money is a medium of exchange, practically everything is. So we need something more specific than that. Otherwise, everything would count as money, almost everything. For example, if I'm a shoe salesman, I buy shoes from my suppliers and I resell them. So technically, that would count as a medium of exchange. But we don't think of it as money. Now, another important note is that in order for people to use something as a transmitter of value, they need to have a subjectively sufficient knowledge of the future price. If something has a more volatile price, it's less likely to be put to use as money. So now, we see that to know what can become money, or what's more likely to be used as such, we need to understand price volatility or predictability. So first, we know that some crypto are in fact medium of exchange, and obviously this doesn't guarantee price stability. So what factors determine price stability, you might ask? So we have here changes in consumer preferences, changes in total stock, speculation, and price stability, what I call price stability by limitation of stock. And we'll go more into depth to the last two here, because we don't have actually any information about changes in consumer preferences or changes in total stock. So first, price stability by limitation of stock. What does this mean? This simply means that as we add market participants, the price of a commodity will tend to stabilize as long as their individual preferences for this commodity is not correlated. Throughout this talk, we will use the total demand to hold approach of price theory as introduced by Rothbard. I plotted here the demand schedules for different market participants and the total demand schedule. As you can see here, when we add market participants, the price will increase, other things being equal, and so the stock of each participant will decrease and they will have a reduced influence on the price. So the lines more on the left there is the individual users' preferences, and the total demand more on the right there. And then we add, in orange, we add more participants, as I described, and then any shift in the individual demand curves will have a lesser effect on the price on the right here than on the left. And as long as the changes in preferences don't correlate, they will tend to cancel out and the price will be more stable, other things being equal. Now, let's first disregard the effects of speculation and look at the price volatility of money. An important feature of the demand for money is that as the price volatility decreases, the demand of the commodity as money grows. Remember, here we follow the definition we introduced just now. So mainly lending on interest or used to transfer value through space or time. And of course, it will also be used as a medium of exchange in the event of such uses. We start with some commodity which may not be used as money at all, and if the price gains stability for some reason, it will attract more use as money. This in turn stabilizes the price by attracting more participants, and this process builds upon itself. So this explains how money came to have a stable price and why we can do economic calculation in the first place using money, because it has a stable demand. And actually this explains why the definition I just introduced is equivalent to Mises's definition when we're talking about a medium of exchange that is in very broad use, because we would expect in the first place for the price to be non-volatile. So now, of course, another important factor for price volatility is speculation. What it's important to recognize is, first, the more volatile the price, the more people will tend to speculate on the future price. For example, you can make entrepreneurial profit by buying low and selling high, or you may actually abstain from purchase if you think future prices will be lower. The other important factor is how long will you be willing to hold your stock or withhold purchase. And this is affected by the following factors: the expected change in price, time preferences, production of the commodity, and the durability of the commodity. So, for example, if the market interest decreases, people will be more willing to hold stock for longer. Also, if there is no production of the commodity, there's no concern of producers making it harder to sell your stock. If the commodity lasts forever, you will also hold it for longer. Now, usually when you read an economics textbook, it will discuss speculation as if there is some point in time where speculators all sell and the market clears. And you get to the conclusion that the price gets to the market equilibrium price, or at least approaches it. In reality, we see cases similar to that, but also we see that bubbles exist where, in hindsight, it seems silly to make these speculations. In particular, it looks like speculation is self-fulfilling. People buy because they expect to sell to the next fool rather than try to tell what the equilibrium price is. This is what I would call speculation not being self-correcting, but self-fulfilling. We can understand this by referring to the time horizon of speculation. So basically, on timescales larger than the time horizon, speculators will sell and the market price will approach the price absent speculation. This is what you read in the textbooks. On smaller timescales, however, the market price may not approach equilibrium with prices driven by expectations. Price stability by limitation of stock limits speculation on smaller timescales because you have, as the price grows, then maybe more speculators join in, and you actually will have the stabilization because of that. So we saw that price volatility has the opposite effects on money and speculative demand. To make things easier to follow, I will use this kind of diagram, as you see, to represent the demand as money on the vertical axis and the speculative part of the demand on the horizontal axis. The volatility is the angle here that you see in red. So you have a trade-off for money versus speculative demand as the volatility changes. And speculative demand, it can be either positive or negative if people think prices will rise or fall. So now we consider again the volatility of the purchasing power of money, but this time in the opposite case, that the price is driven mainly by speculation. In the previous case, there was basically no speculation, or the price was driven by direct uses maybe. That is, the volatility is significant, and most of the demand is due to speculative modification of the demand curve. Of course, we also consider the process at a time scale smaller than the speculative horizon. So we start at the top left here, where people hold a lot of stock as speculation on rising prices, and very little is used as money. With time, the number of market participants will grow, and the price may get more stable, as you see on the top right. But now, the price is not expected to change much, because it's more stable. People only want so much stock as money, and so they sell to decrease their holding, the speculators that is. But now the price will start to decrease because this is a case where different participants' preferences are correlated, because they see the reason that they're selling is because they see the same thing, the falling price. This will create an expectation of decreasing prices, as you can see on the bottom right. Both speculators and money users, which basically people using this commodity as money, will sell, and price volatility increases in a self-perpetuating process. In the end, either only the direct use demand remains, or the process may reset to the starting state here if people start to speculate that the price will increase. Oh, yeah. So, what does this practically mean for cryptocurrencies, and what other conclusions are there? Thank you. First of all, this explains why and where and when market bubbles form. We can define bubbles as cases where the market price greatly varies from the price absent speculation and for a long time. We see market bubbles form when central banks lower interest rates. We see that bubbles form in durable goods such as real estate and financial vehicles like stocks, where you also have very low rates of production. All these factors serve to increase the time horizon of speculation. This explanation is complementary to the Austrian business cycle theory. It's not limited to the prices of means of production. Finally, the implications for cryptocurrencies, which is why you're all here. First of all, we can immediately say that some tokens are already money, and I mean particular bits of Bitcoin, for instance, and not Bitcoin as a category. Some Bitcoins are money and others are not. Now, to take Bitcoin as an example, there is no direct use demand. There is much more stock held as a speculation than stock held for money uses, since the price is volatile. According to our earlier analysis, there may come a period of time where Bitcoins are used as money to a greater extent, but eventually it will fall out of favor. Either we're left with a cycle of volatility, or the price will eventually collapse to zero or simply be used as a collector's item. So if you have any questions, I'll be happy to answer and talk to you afterwards. If you found this interesting, please read the conference paper, which goes into more detail. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Of course, we have some time for the questions.
Just on that last point, where you're talking about perpetual volatility cycles, don't you think with the institutional adoption that it will stabilize prices so you won't see those such wild swings in these particular asset classes?
I think one factor which is really when you go back here, there's no definite point where people will prefer to use this as money rather than speculation. So if the government or central banks or something in some way threaten people out of using other means as money and force them to use this particular means as money, then they might prefer to use this as money even though it's very volatile at the time, and then it may cross into this region where it's less and less volatile, and you will be able to create money out of this, but you will need probably massive amounts of coercion to do it.
Okay, we have time for one more, please.
You mentioned that money has to have three characteristics, including store of wealth, but also means of exchange and facilitating transactions. Do you think things like bitcoins and other tokens will not really become money until they facilitate exchange in any, general sort of way? I don't believe they do at the moment, but they may be store of value.
I hope I understand the question, but what I'm saying is that you can't call Bitcoin money as a category. Some pieces of Bitcoin will be just speculated upon, and that won't be money, and other pieces are already money. Can you repeat maybe? Or?
Well, will they not become money until they become regular means of exchange, which I don't think has happened yet?
It's money once someone actually uses it as such. There's no, I'm not claiming that it will be money as a category in any point, or to the contrary. There's no, it's simply revealed preference.
Thank you. Thank you, Lior.